At the Notre-Dame Cathedral in Paris, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of the French. Europe trembled at the unprecedented rise of a man, born on the island of Corsica, the son of minor nobility, who had become a military dictator in less than a decade. Revolution and war had paved the way for Napoleon's ascent. A reign of warfare began, a period of conflict unlike any seen before in human history. One that would cost the lives of millions and plunge Europe into chaos. 8 months after the coronation, the French Empire and its ally Spain declared war on the British Empire. Napoleon assembled an army of 180,000 men along the French coast, preparing to invade England. But as long as the Royal Navy ruled the seas, the invasion was impossible, and Britain, in turn, could not challenge France on land. So Prime Minister William Pitt began to forge a new coalition against Napoleon, using diplomacy and British gold. Britain would soon prove to be Napoleon's most persistent and unrelenting enemy. The British press ceaselessly mocked Napoleon. Britain and France, old enemies on both land and sea, were once again locked in a deadly contest. But now, Pitt feared that Napoleon's conquests would only make France stronger. Napoleon must be destroyed. The balance of power in Europe must be restored. Only then can we have lasting peace. Pitt quickly found allies across Europe. Monarchs who saw Napoleon as the embodiment of the French Revolution, a threat to the old order of Europe. Austria was especially aggrieved. Its influence in Germany and Italy had been sharply diminished by Napoleon's victories. In 1805, things escalated further when Napoleon declared himself King of Italy in Milan, Austria, Russia, Sweden, Naples, and Britain formed a grand alliance, the Third Coalition. They laid out an ambitious plan for a coordinated strike against France. The main attack was to come from Austrian and Russian forces, advancing through the Rhine. But Napoleon had learned of the plan. He acted swiftly and decisively, instead of waiting. Napoleon launched a preemptive strike, ordering his forces to march toward the Rhine. He named his army La Grande Army, the Grand Army. Their target, the Austrian forces under General Mack. Austria had invaded Bavaria, a French ally, but now found itself isolated. Napoleon sent Marshal Joachim Murat, his trusted cavalry commander, on a feint through the Black Forest, while the rest of his army marched rapidly to encircle Mack from the north. That summer, the Grande Army was a formidable force, well-trained, highly motivated, and reorganized into army corps, each under the command of a marshal and consisting of 15,000 to 30,000 men, including infantry, cavalry, artillery, engineers, scouts, and supply units. Each corps could march and fight independently. A revolutionary approach that shattered the old military doctrine of keeping armies concentrated. He's allowed Napoleon to attack across a wide front, making his movements unpredictable. His troops could advance quickly via multiple routes, sourcing supplies from scattered villages rather than relying on slow supply trains, and when it came time to fight, Napoleon could rapidly concentrate his forces, catching the enemy by surprise and throwing them into confusion. General Mack realized the danger, but too late. Napoleon's corps had already crossed the Danube behind him and surrounded his forces. Mack launched a series of desperate counterattacks, but they failed to break the encirclement. He pinned his hopes on the arrival of Russian forces under General Kutuzov, but they were still over 250 kilometers away. On October 19th, just 6 weeks after the start of the war, Mack surrendered at Ulm. Napoleon had captured nearly 60,000 Austrian soldiers, a decisive victory against the Third Coalition. Unlike Mack, Kutuzov was a seasoned and cautious commander. His army had marched over 1,500 kilometers from Russia and was exhausted. Upon hearing of Austria's surrender at Ulm, and realizing he was too weak to face Napoleon, Kutuzov ordered a retreat. Napoleon gave chase. The Russians fought several fierce rearguard actions, but could not prevent the fall of the Austrian capital. On November 12th, French forces entered Vienna. Kutuzov retreated to Olmütz, now in the Czech Republic, to regroup with Tsar Alexander of Russia and Emperor Francis of Austria. Napoleon was furious that Kutuzov had escaped. His army was now far from home, exhausted, and winter was approaching. He needed a decisive battle, and quickly. Fortunately, Tsar Alexander, only 27 years old, was overconfident and eager for glory. Ignoring the caution of the aging general, Kutuzov, as the Allied armies approached, Napoleon carefully chose his battlefield near the town of Austerlitz. He personally oversaw troop deployments late into the night, then slept for a few hours by the campfire at dawn on December 2, 1805, the first anniversary of his coronation. Napoleon prepared to fight the battle that would make or break his young empire. The day broke cold and foggy. Two evenly matched armies faced each other on an 11-kilometer-long battlefield. The Allies held the high ground on the Pratzen Heights, while Marshal de Watt's Third Corps was still marching to reinforce Napoleon's right, seeing the French right flank thin and overstretched. The Allies planned a massive attack from the Pratzen Heights to crush Napoleon's right wing, then swing round to encircle the French. But they had no idea Napoleon was baiting them, luring them into a trap, while he prepared to strike at the center. At 7 o'clock a.m., the battle began. Austrian troops under General Kienmeyer attacked the village of Telnitz, overwhelming the outnumbered French defenders, who fought bravely, but were gradually pushed back. The Allied command failed to follow up with a broader assault. Thick fog and poor communication delayed their movements. 3 hours passed before their main attack was launched. The fight at Sokolnitz was intense. But then, de Watt's corps arrived. Having marched over 100 kilometers in 2 days. At around 9 o'clock a.m., de Watt's vanguard brigade emerged from the mist, retook Telnitz, but was soon repelled by Austrian hussars. 2 more brigades soon reinforced the French at Sokolnitz. As the fog lifted, Napoleon saw that the Allies had taken the bait. Their left wing had moved, just as he had predicted. He now ordered Marshal Soult's Fourth Corps to attack the Pratzen Heights. The Allied generals were stunned to see 2 French infantry divisions emerge from the mist and march straight toward the center of their line. Kutuzov scrambled to defend the heights with his 4th Brigade, and a brutal 2-hour battle followed. The musket fire was relentless. When both sides ran out of ammunition, the soldiers charged with bayonets. By 11 o'clock a.m., the well-disciplined French had captured the Pratzen Heights and drove a wedge into the heart of the Allied army. To the north, a massive cavalry battle erupted. Russian troops under General Bagration briefly took the village of Bosnitz before being repelled by French artillery from Santon Hill. A final push by 6 French heavy cavalry regiments broke the Allied line, allowing Marshal Lanz's Fifth Corps to seize Blasowitz and Krugdot. In desperation, Grand Duke Constantine of Russia led the Imperial Guard, the Allies' last reserve, in a final attempt to retake the Pratzen Heights. In the bloody clash that followed, a battalion of France's 4th Line Regiment lost their treasured Eagle standard to Russian cavalry. Napoleon now ascended the Pratzen Heights himself, using his elite cavalry. He retook the initiative. The battle between the finest cavalry units of both sides ended in French victory. Now, having broken the center, Napoleon moved to encircle the Allied left flank, still fighting at Sokolnitz. By 2 p.m., Napoleon ordered for divisions to move south and cut off their retreat. Allied General Buxhowden now realized the danger. His men, under attack from 3 sides, had only one path of escape: across a frozen lake, French artillery opened fire, breaking the ice. Round 200 Allied soldiers and dozens of horses drowned in the freezing water. Not thousands, as Napoleon's propaganda later claimed. Napoli and had achieved a stunning victory. The French captured over 10,000 prisoners, seized 45 enemy standards, and inflicted thousands of casualties. Corpses littered the battlefield for days. This battle, the Battle of the Three Emperors, crushed the Third Coalition. As the Russians retreated, Emperor Francis I of Austria was forced to sign a humiliating peace with France, paying 40 million francs and ceding territory in exchange for peace. But even in triumph, bad news reached Napoleon. The joint Franco-Spanish fleet had been destroyed at Cape Trafalgar. Admiral Lord Nelson gave his life in the battle, but ensured British naval dominance. Not just for the rest of the war, but for more than a century to come. Britain now ruled the seas. Napoleon was supreme on land. A whale in the ocean and an elephant on land. Neither dares to challenge the other. When Prime Minister William Pitt received news of Napoleon's triumph at Austerlitz, he said, "Roll up the map of Europe. It will not be needed for another." 10 years, a month later, Pitt died. But his warning about a continent consumed by war for the next decade would prove tragically prophetic. From a minor Corsican nobleman to Emperor of France, Napoleon Bonaparte rose to reshape Europe through ambition, war, and sheer brilliance. In less than 10 years, he built a powerful empire, shattering the old balance of power on the continent. The Battle of Austerlitz, known as the Battle of the Three Emperors, stands as one of his greatest victories, his stunning demonstration of speed, strategy, and military genius. It crushed the Third Coalition and solidified Napoleon's dominance on land. However, at sea, Britain reigned supreme. The devastating French-Spanish defeat at Trafalgar proved that even Napoleon could not conquer the waves. While he ruled the land like an unstoppable force, the oceans remained in British hands. This was an age of glory and bloodshed, a time of grand ambition and costly war. Thank you for watching this video to the end. History is not just about dates and battles, it's about people, choices, victories, and consequences. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with fellow history enthusiasts. Your support means the world to us and helps us create more quality content like this. Special thanks to HistoryMarch for the brilliant battlefield maps and animations. And to all our patrons on Patreon who make videos like this possible. We appreciate your time and we hope to see you again in the next episode of History.